So today you will have a class on amputations. Amputation simply means where a part of the limb is removed. It is removed if it endangers life and if it endangers the life of the limb itself, like gangrene. So endangers life is gas gangrene, endangers limb is gangrene of the limb itself. Then, when it loses its structure so that it can't function, or when it loses its function, like it's paralyzed, it is sored, it is useless. But whenever you decide on amputation, you have to ask another person, because the decision of not only the patient but another surgeon who also feels the same way. Then you talk to the patient and take consent of the patient. Finally, you prepare the patient for anesthesia and surgery and put the patient for anesthesia and surgery after deciding the level of amputation. The level of amputation, if done in an infected limb, is at the level of the live and the dead part of bone, where there is a line of demarcation between live and dead. And in this, you do an amputation which will remain open because the infection must drain. Such an amputation is called as the guillotine amputation, on the name of that apparatus which used to behead people, guillotine. All tissues are cut at the same level. The variant of a guillotine amputation is that you do make the flaps but don't close them, so that it remains open and you can close them in a second stage or later when the infection has healed. But the basic idea of an amputation is that whatever is your level of amputation, when you do a planned amputation, then supposing this is the lip, then you will make the incision from the sides, and from these 2 points on the side, this will be the point of bone section where you will section the bone. Then you will take a curved incision like this from one point to second point, and the radius of this semicircle would be half the width of the limb, so that you close it, there is no folding of the skin. Then the where you find that the vascularity all around is good, for example, where there are muscles all around the bone, in that circumstance you would do an amputation uh, with both the flaps equal to each other. But in case the vascularity here is less and in this area it is more, posteriorly it is more, then you will have a bigger posterior flap, so that the vascularity of the flap is always maintained. The general principle is that the the radius should never exceed the diameter of the diameter of the limb. So when you make a flap, you should be sure of the vascularity. The second important thing is that whenever you section, the skin is sectioned here, the muscle would be sectioned here, and the periosteum would be sectioned here, so that there is a plane like this and a plane like this, so that you can, when you close, it's like an open fish mouth like this, and it closes like this. The third is that when you section a bone, supposing this is the bone, then in tibia especially, you may have a longer posterior part which folds up like this. Supposing this is the longer posterior part, it will fold like this and close the medullary cavity. Now this is called as osteoplasty. This is called as osteoplasty. Then when you close the muscle, these are the oblique muscles on both the ends, then you close them like this so that there is no dead space. You take a stitch like this, go right from the depths and then up on the opposite side, so that it closes like this. And finally you close the skin so that there is dermis to dermis contact and epithelium to epithelium contact. If you think that there is no good hemostasis, you would leave a drain inside. After the amputation, you tie a bandage which causes compression and prevents bleeding. And you can tie a splint so that he doesn't feel the absence of limb. Tying the splint, below leg splint, means that there will be less feeling of the limb, because there is no limb but he feels that there is a limb. This is called as phantom limb sensation. Post-operative, you elevate, you care for the patient, you give antibiotics, you look for soakage and all that. And then you remove the stitches and you have an amputation stump. Now this amputation stump becomes your short case or long case. Okay. So what do you see in this stump? The first thing you see in this stump is what is the level of amputation. There is a hind quarter amputation in the lower limb where the half of the pelvis goes. There is disarticulation through the hip. There can be a above knee amputation. There can be a below knee amputation. The below knee amputation can have an adequate stump, can be with a short stump, can be with a flexed flexion contracture of the knee, where it is has a special name which is called as flexed below knee amputation with flexion contracture. And there can be a disarticulation through the knee. Here you use the posterior surface of the patella to close the medullary cavity of the remaining femur. This is called as the gritty stroke amputation. Then you have a disarticulation through the ankle to cut off the medial malleolus at the same level of the articular cartilage of tibia. So this is called as the Symes amputation. And then there are amputations in the foot which preserve the calcaneum and the talus, and they are called as Lisfranc's amputation, and those names you will know by the other videos. So you first say what is the level of the amputation. Then you say whether the wound has healed by a primary intention of the skin, and whether the scar is painful or painless. Then you say whether the sensations on both the flaps are normal or abnormal. Then you say whether the joint is moving completely or not moving completely. And what is the power around the joint. Supposing it's the knee, then you say what is the extensor power and what is the flexor power. Then you try to answer whether the stump is matured or not matured, because when you do an amputation, there is gradually wasting of the muscles and the stump tends to shrink in size. So if you give a prosthesis when the stump is not mature, you would have a larger socket and later on it will become loose. When it becomes loose, it will move like this in the socket, so it will produce instability and there will be injury at the end. So till the stump is mature, you give what is called as immediate post-operative prosthetic fitting. So you give a plaster socket and you give a pylon which has a foot. If you give this, then the stumps heal faster, they heal without complication. The gait pattern of the patient is not lost. So these are the advantages of immediate post-operative prosthetic fitting. Then when you have you think that the stump is mature, you find it out by taking the volume of the stump. So for instance, the stump, you draw a line here and you dip it in water and see how much water it displaces. You keep on measuring this volume occasionally, and if you find that the volume has become constant, it means this stump is mature. Normally it takes about 2 to 3 months. Then you can fit a PVC prosthesis. So what you do, you first take a plaster mold, then this is called as the negative mold, then you fill it with the plaster with a pole inside, that becomes a positive mold. Then on the bony points you add some more plaster so that the mold that you get has proper release on the bony points. For example, if you don't protect the head of the fibula and the tibial tuberosity, the socket will hurt at these points. So this is how you make a socket. On the socket you put an extension, which may be a wooden extension or a metallic extension, and lastly you give a satch foot. Satch foot means solid ankle cushion heel. So when there is the heel strikes, there is microcellular rubber here, so that absorbs the weight or the energy. So there is a cushioning effect, but this microcellular rubber, multi-layered microcellular heel absorbs the energy. And when you are in the toe off position, then it provides the energy so that you have a push off or a heel off. So this is the principle of solid ankle cushion heel. Microcellular rubber because it's a rubber which has multiple cells of air, and the size of the cell depends on how much the rubber will compress. So you have alternative layers of more rigid and less rigid rubber. That makes a cushion heel, and that is the function of the cushion heel. Then similarly you may have a toe brake rubber here, so that this action of the toes dorsiflexing before the push off, that action is replicated. So that is a satch foot. But if the person wants to avoid the shoe, wants to go to the temple, or doesn't want the shoe to become wet because the environment around his house has this mud and water, so then you give him a foot which is called as Jaipur foot. The Jaipur foot is a foot just like the normal foot, and it's made of rubber, and by that you can reproduce all actions of cross-legged sitting, squatting, and this walking. So this foot is called as Jaipur foot. It was developed by Professor P.K. Sethi of Jaipur, and he won the Megasase award for the development of this foot. He also developed the device for squatting, because when you squat you need to dorsiflex the ankle, which is not possible in a solid ankle cushion heel type of arrangement. So this is the foot. You have a socket, you have a extension piece or shin piece, and you have a satch foot. Then you put the prosthesis on the ground and see whether it is stable, because then the line of gravity of the prosthesis must pass through its base for it to be stable. This is called a static alignment. It doesn't fall on any of the sides. Then you put the prosthesis on the patient, see whether it hurts or it is comfortable, give some final adjustments, make the patient stand on both limbs and see whether there's symmetry. The level of the knee is the same, the level of the ankle is the same, and whether there is uh, then you make the patient stand on single limb and see whether it's stable in that position. It is ideal if it is stable in that position. And finally, you do a gait training and then make the patient walk. After the gait training, you have to do what is called as physiotherapy, then occupational therapy, that means something interesting, then recreational therapy, then vocational therapy. That means you have to train the patient so that he can earn his earn his job. In the vocational therapy, you try to ensure whether he can go back into the same vocation or different job in the same organization, or because then that organization is committed to take him back, or you have to find a different job for him in a different organization, or you have to put him in a sheltered workshop. For example, if there's a paraplegic, he can work with his hands. We can have a workshop which needs only the hands, and the paraplegics can sort of, these jute mats and jute carpets. They, from there you can do this is vocational rehabilitation. So this, in short, covers up the amputation, and you will also see uh, you will hear the lecture, and you have already heard the lecture, perhaps by the time this video is up, and you will also see my other video on rehabilitation and amputation. By this I have given what I can give to you regarding amputation.